Okay, and we are live. So, welcome to another episode of the TGBA, the Total Game Basketball Academy podcast. Tonight, I have two special guests, um, Robbie Johnson Sr., and I have Robbie Johnson Jr., aka RJ. And we're going to talk about RJ's journey as he went through this whole recruiting process as a student athlete. He is now a senior at Salesianum High School in Wilmington, Delaware. He is playing football at this particular time. He's also a basketball standout as well at Sally's. And currently, he's ranked as the number one prospect in the state of Delaware for football. He is a four-star rated defensive end in football in this particular region. He has committed himself to Rutgers University in Piscataway, New Jersey. They are a member of the Big Ten Conference. A lot of big time names are in that conference, and we're looking for some really big things out of this conference from years to come. Uh, Probably you can argue that it could be the actual number one or best conference in college football. So we're going to begin. We're going to jump right in. And first of all, I want to thank you guys for coming on and giving up your time to spend with me here on TGBA and just to talk about this journey, man, as it relates to your recruiting process and that whole thing. Because this is like the end of the high school time where that recruiting thing has really surfaced, and you really have to make a decision on where you want to go. But everything didn't begin this year. This was an early pathway and early start with all this stuff. So I just want to jump right in. First of all, I want to ask Dad, Rob, if you can tell me a little bit about your family's background as it relates to sports. I know that you were a former athlete, student athlete, so you've gone through this kind of process, and you got a background in this arena. So what were some of the things that your family and you exposed to your son in order to help him to get to where he's at and maybe influence his athletic journey?
First of all, thanks, Tony, for having us on. Really appreciate you taking the opportunity to meet with us,
Absolutely.
discuss RJ's journey. But to start off, as you mentioned, being a former D1 basketball athlete, we try to instill in our kids that we wanted to see what their journey was like. So we exposed them to a lot of different sports to see what they was going to gravitate to the most. The oldest son, he was more academic, and he realized by his junior year that basketball and football wasn't his go-to sports. He was more academic inclined, strong in math and science, so he went to Votech for engineering at Hudson. My daughter was an athlete. She did it all though. She gymnastics, dance, basketball, soccer. She went through a variety of sports before she came back to say, well, basketball is my sport, and went on and played at a high level in high school, winning a couple of conference championships and things like that. But as well was very academic inclined as well. And now she's currently at Westchester, finished her bachelor's degree in athletic training and finishing up her master's. She just completed an internship with the Kansas City Chiefs over the summer.
Oh, wow.
And now she's currently doing her last internship with Eastern University up in PA for football. So she realized also that, she didn't want to continue on the next level for basketball, where she did have some early aspirations, but she decided that she was more passionate about athletic training.
Okay.
She went to St. George's Votech for athletic training. Really excelled at that and wanted to continue her career in that field. RJ was a different beast. It was a different animal. He had so much energy. So we had to throw a lot of things at him to keep him occupied. So where my other two kids started to, and I failed to mention that I ran the Boys and Girls Club for 20 years in Newark, Delaware. And my other two they didn't start the club till they were 6.
Okay.
RJ, because of his energy and at that time you can see him, he's a little bit more athletic than them. He started at 4. So he was in summer camp at 4 years old, and he was a little taller, so
Yeah.
he looked like a 5 and 6 year old.
Gotcha.
So he got that athletic journey early to be able to run around, try a lot of different sports at the Boys and Girls Club, uh, and use that energy to his advantage.
Okay. So basically, he had an opportunity to see a lot of, siblings, doing their things ahead of him and also just being around it because of your background, working at the boys club, former player, probably, just maybe taking them to games. Maybe you probably during a time where you were still actively playing yourself. So he probably was
Absolutely.
hanging around and watching you and stuff like that. So, wow, man, all these years, man, you kept that from me, about, all the other kids, the stuff they're doing. That's some phenomenal stuff,
Yeah.
man. I just want to say, man, that's some good stuff right there. So, what that tells me is that you and your wife, your family, you guys are really setting the tone. You're creating an environment, man, that expose your kids to sports and athletics and a lot of different things while at the same time still trying to push the importance of academia, you know what I mean, because marrying those two together, it can do wonders for our young people as they move forward into their careers. So man, kudos to you, man. That's great. I'm glad to hear that about your other kids, man. So just tell me, how important was that? You know what I mean? Well, how important was that to foster, that type of balance, between athletics and academics, you know what I mean, when it came to working and teaching your children and just trying to ingrain that stuff in them at a very early age. How important was that in the Johnson household?
Very important because me being the athlete and the so-called jock, of the family,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
wifey being all academic, registered nurse, graduate
yeah.
in master's program from the University of Delaware,
Mm,
was
mhm,
all about academics. So it was no way
mhm,
getting around it. So we
mhm,
we had dual responsibilities where,
mhm,
she was, she was a sports fan with the kids, but she also was that
mhm,
rock for them to make sure they on top of their studies.
mhm,
And it continue all the way to the day. Like, she's the one that's constantly going to ride RJ about where you at with your grades, what they look like, what you need help with, what you're working on.
mhm,
Where I'm the one most of the time, running
mhm,
around, picking them up for practices, and we all obviously support all the kids at their games. Um,
mhm.
but she was the drive to make sure academics was didn't get lost,
Awesome.
and
Awesome. So
we
you
had a
you
good balance.
awesome. You had a good balance there. You guys worked as a team.
Correct.
She took on that role, you took on the other roles, and you guys just made it happen, made it work. However it need to get done, y'all just got it done.
Right. And she'd be the first one to tell you she's the smartest one in the family. So we let her have that title.
Yeah,
We let her have that title.
yeah, that's what's up. So, Robbie, just staying with you for a minute. Can you describe the moment when you really realized that Robbie, RJ, he had that potential, man, to maybe be a major or a D1 player? You know, just seeing that potential in him. When did you see or recognize that most? Man, wait a minute, RJ, he really got this potential, man, to really do this thing at a high
Let me
level.
let me let me back it up a lot further. Like RJ
Mhm,
stood out more from the other kids right away. Like I said, with athleticism, how much he
mhm,
had developed. He was so much more developed at his age when I compare him to their ages. And a
mhm,
good example of that is it took my oldest son probably till he was about maybe I want to say 8 to ride a bike without training wheels.
mm.
My daughter,
Okay.
with my dad constantly practicing with her and practicing with her, she was about
Mhm,
7.
mhm,
RJ was 5. It didn't need no training wheels. I put him on for the first time outside a little tricycle. He might have been 4 or 5 without a little tricycle. Put him on that 2 wheeler and barely
mhm.
held on for a minute, and he went riding off down the street by himself.
Okay.
And I was like, whoa, that's that to have that
Mm,
balance, how to ride a bike,
mm,
how much
yeah.
coordination you need, and how
Yeah.
that balance you need. He picked
Right.
up on
Right.
that right away. So then,
Right.
coursing of playing sports a lot at the Boys and Girls Club, I saw his IQ developing.
Mm-hmm.
Where he was like the
Mm-hmm.
biggest guy, but he also
Mm-hmm.
was passing the ball a lot.
Mm,
And I was like, wow, this kid, like he sees the floor in basketball. He understands like he don't have to take the shot. He's going to
mm-hmm.
hit the open person. And even at an early age, I was like, that's the right pass to make. Even though that kid didn't
Mm-hmm.
catch it or that kid missed the shot, he already understood that still was the right play. So with that
Mm-hmm.
IQ, probably in like fourth or fifth grade, I was like, this kid's going to be special.
Okay.
He's growing. So he's going to be on that Division 1. He's going to follow my footsteps for the most part. He's going to
Gotcha.
be able to play Division 1 basketball.
Mm,
And that was early. And then we got introduced to football at the age of 7. And he
mm-hmm.
started off playing quarterback. And it was like, he was
Mm.
calling himself Mike Vick. He was a lefty and he had number 7. He was the quarterback.
Yeah.
And they could
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
they could not tackle him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I knew right there, I said, he's gonna have a problem. It's gonna be a good
Gotcha.
problem. He's gonna have to decide between football and basketball.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So so what kind of strategies, man, did you use, right? In order to like try to help him get noticed, with college coaches and colleges and universities, period, as a prospect. Now that you had, witnessed those moments where you saw, man, you saw the potential, you've been there before, you know what it's like. You said, man, I know he's got the potential. So now I need to come up with a game plan, some strategies. How do I get him on the radar? How do I get him noticed? And how, do I come up with the right strategies, in order to make this happen? So was this you? Was this a family thing? How did you guys come up with this? And what were some of those strategies?
It was always a family decision, but back in you and I day, AAU wasn't as popular. I
Mm,
really only played one season of
mhm,
AAU. Um,
mhm,
and it just started taking off, a couple of years after that. And that's the strategy we use because being a former basketball player, my projection was always for RJ to play Division 1 basketball.
mhm,
And so I took over. He actually went to nationals at AAU and they lost in the championship in fourth grade.
mhm.
And then by the time they got to sixth grade, they didn't have a coach. So I coached the girls for 17 years. Girls AAU, started the girls AAU program,
Okay.
Lady Sharks at the Boys and Girls Club in Newark.
Mhm.
Myself and Amber Hickman Taylor.
Okay.
And when RJ got to sixth grade, Team Delaware didn't have a coach. So then I transitioned over to his team for his last 3 years before high school.
Mhm.
Uh, and he was excelling then. He was, the best player on his team. And then it was COVID, so he had to sit out a year in the eighth grade. Again, you
Mhm.
saw the development. And actually, COVID was helpful because kids were home and kids were working out. So
Right.
RJ was
Right.
working out at home, again to
Mhm.
do some things that we normally wouldn't have done because it was during the school day, right?
Mhm.
And they had that long break during COVID. But that's when a lot of his game again excelled because he was able to work out at different times that he normally wouldn't get to work out at.
Okay.
Uh, but then, you know, entering high school, and he always played Pop Warner football. And
Mhm.
a lot of people don't know that RJ was a tight end.
Mhm.
And at the age of 10, all the way up till he got to high school, he played tight end.
Okay.
Played defense, but not as serious as he was more
Mhm.
advantageous on the offensive side. And I think
Mhm.
one year you led them in touchdowns or tied them in touchdowns or something like that
Mhm.
with the Ducks
Okay.
on the football circuit. They were a very good team. All those
Mhm.
guys from that team, mostly all the ones that were at least in the starting rotation, all of them were started as freshmen at their
Mhm.
respective high schools. So that's how good the program was. So much
Mhm.
development was going on. But then
Mhm.
RJ got to high school and he was like, listen, I want to play basketball. So I'm not doing no tight end stuff because I
Right.
want to do the hitting. I don't want to get hit. I want to do the hitting.
Right. 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 Right.
And I was cool with that. I understood that. And he went to St.
Yeah. Yeah.
George's and he played, started a lot of games as a freshman. And then
Mhm.
unfortunately, we just didn't think, again, still on the basketball side, that he was playing with We Are One that first year in high school. That was
Gotcha.
it's an Under Armour circuit, Under Armour program
Mm-hmm.
that we can't play at a high level and then come back and play basketball at St. George's, where he was like the center at 6'3" at that time. It's like
Gotcha.
you can't play wing and be a guard in a circuit and then come back and play center.
Right.
So we
Right.
had to move on to a
Gotcha.
program that was going to really be able
Mm-hmm.
to exploit his versatility.
Mm-hmm.
And we found that at Sally's.
Okay, gotcha. So bottom line was AAU played a big part in the exposure and just being able to play with higher caliber, athletes to really, get him more exposed and also get him better playing against better players. And then Sally's probably being more of a system or program that he could fit into to get more
More
exposure at the same
exposure.
time.
They played it. Their out of state schedule was a lot more rigorous than other in state opponents. So
Okay.
yeah, they played a lot of out of state opponents, which was high on our radar when we were looking at schools
Okay.
for him to transfer to.
Okay. Good, man. So, all right, those are some great strategies, man, because having that foresight and vision, um, to know, look, I got to put him in the right position. I got to put him in the right school in order to be able to maximize the potential and get the exposure that he needs so that he can become a high level prospect to get recruited. And you know what? Trying to weigh that out between multiple sports, man, is not an easy task at all. I can truly relate to you, man. And Robbie and RJ, uh, you remind me so much of myself because that was me coming out of high school, playing multiple sports, being highly recruited, in both sports, high major, colleges and universities all over the country. So having to come to those kind of conclusions to make a decision, was not an easy task. And we'll get to that part. We'll get to that part on how, you came to the decision to commit where you are and to pick this particular sport that we call football. Yeah. So, there was a time where, and it still, remains a part of the whole process for you. And I'm speaking to you, Robbie, Dad, um, as a parent, how did you support Robbie in making his final decision on where to commit and what role did you play, in that particular decision? Did you give him pros and cons and let him try to really determine what that decision is going to be? Kind of let him just take control of his recruiting journey a little bit and take some, ownership in trying to figure this thing out. How did you guys arrive to that?
It was tough because we still was on the basketball circuit hard,
Mhm.
uh, and envisioning him playing D1 basketball, and football came in and started swooping in at the same time. And the ironic thing is, what people don't realize is that RJ did not ever attend any football camps, any pre-football workouts. This kid would go right from high school season, football, right to basketball season. High school basketball season ends right into AAU circuit.
Mm,
It wouldn't even show up to football camps. Literally, I would keep him out 2 weeks. So he wouldn't
mhm,
even show up in August for football camp because I needed to rest his body for about 2 weeks.
mhm,
So again, in preparation for basketball.
mhm, mhm,
So football was second nature, and he loved playing it.
mhm,
But it got real when the recruitment started taking off in football as opposed to basketball. So it
mhm,
made us reevaluate the whole process.
mhm,
And looking back, I, my suggestion to other families and people that's viewing this is that if your student is playing 2 or 3 different sports,
mhm,
try to be as equally involved in all three as far as their recruitment process and getting them out there and getting them noticed through
mhm,
camps, clinics, travel
mhm,
ball. And some things going to sacrifice. You're gonna miss some seasons of some.
mhm,
Um, but if they get their name out there and they participate in those events, it's going to be unlimited offers out there and scholarships for.
mhm,
So we had to shift to and take football a little bit more serious, because then we start getting invited to game days, invited on campuses. And then when you hear coaches repeatedly saying, "Oh my God, you're much bigger in person than on film," and how much they were in tune to locking in and watching their film, and we didn't even know anything about it until the football coach was like, "Hey, I got a call from this, I got a call from this school, I got a call from that school. This school
Right.
came to visit," and this all started happening at the end of his sophomore year at Sally's in the spring, and it was like, "Whoa, wow!" Like, okay, all right. And he was getting some basketball interest, but they weren't coming to the school. They
Right.
were calling. Some would call and say they're interested, and they're going to follow him. But you had these football coaches coming in person, sizing him up, doing his measurables.
Right.
It's like, oh,
It was,
this kid. And then they loved the fact that he was dual sport. They loved the fact that he played both sports. So I think that was encouraged. I think that, I'm not going to speak for RJ, but I think that motivated him more to kind of focus on both and not kind of put aside football and take football a little bit more serious. So we support him with that. And then ultimately, when it came down to making a decision, it was just trying to guide him, weigh out the pros and cons, let him tell us what his pros and cons were for the different schools that he had opportunities to go to. And ultimately, he made a decision. The decision is his, because we're not going to be at that school every day. He has to live that. He has to live that experience. So he narrowed it down to Rutgers, and he told us why. And when he gave us 5 reasons why, we picked up the phone and called Coach Shiano directly, and he answered. And RJ told him, "Hey, this is where I want to go."
Okay. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And RJ is going to get his opportunity to share his point of view, his perspective, as well, on how that whole process took place. And just one more question I want to ask you, Robbie Senior, real quick before we shift over to RJ and have RJ, share some things with us, from his perspective as the student athlete going through this whole entire journey. And this is directed toward, and I know you've shared some things that will help, other student athletes, other families and parents to help. I mean, them, like figure some things out. Being as though you've gone through so much, you have invaluable information to share. And one thing I would ask you, like, how did you know, how to uh, put RJ in those certain situations, or where did you know where to go, reach out to in order to make these decisions to find the right places for him to shine, um, put him around the right people. So, like, there's a lot of parents that may not know how to really navigate this thing from maybe like from let's just start at middle school. You know, how do you determine what high school your son or daughter should attend if you see them having potential to be a really good student athlete and they really love a sport or several sports, but at the same time you're looking for academics as well as a good athletic, supported program. How do what would you say to parents and other families on how to figure that part out?
Yeah, I mean, when they're in grade school and you start seeing that you're spending all this money to travel with your child to play soccer or volleyball, or basketball,
Mm.
you're paying all these travel fees at that young age.
Yeah.
You got to make it work, right? You got to
Mhm.
make it work. So now you got to get fine tuned and say, okay, what middle school is going to be a good pipeline to a good high school?
Mhm.
And out there now, these kids transfer all the time. There's a lot of transfers going on, things like that. But it all still going to boil down to how strong the academics are at that school,
Mhm.
and what pipeline is that school linked to.
Mhm.
If you start that early in middle school, and
Mhm.
we were fortunate enough to have RJ, attend Dickinson MYP program,
Mhm.
which is pretty much like a private school in a public school sector. All
Right,
right.
right, right.
It's definitely like, and
Mm.
be able to tend to get that IB educational training and way of critical thinking through our IB program at the NYP at the John Dickinson School. I think it started a foundation. You know, RJ did attend Caravel for a year, but it just happened not to be a good fit.
Right.
And in sixth grade, this wasn't a good fit. So we had to change to look at other options. And we attended the NYP at the John Dickinson program, and it worked out well. And, you know, it also, that was a year, COVID years, but it worked out well. And St. George's was in the pipeline because sister played at St. George's. The football coach was my freshman year roommate at the University of Delaware. So there was a little plug there. I knew he would take care of RJ. He'd been watching RJ in middle school football ever since he was 10. So he would come to some of the games every week he could. He would make the games and watch RJ develop. So he knew, like, I got to have this kid.
Right.
And we tried it for a year, but because we were on the basketball track so hard, it wasn't beneficial for basketball anymore. So we had to make the shift. And then again, as we looked at that shift, it was important that, again, it was academic based. Mom wasn't letting it happen unless it was academics were strong.
Right.
Preparing for the next level of college. And we knew there was going to be a transition, some transitional issues, especially when you've been at, public school all your career and then you go to a private school. You have to deal with that transition and learn their culture.
Gotcha.
And he handled that. And then it's been smooth ever since. What I can say to parents, though, and this is by no means a plug for the TGBA, your podcast, and Tony, what you do, but you and I go back a long ways. So, and I was always bending your ear and getting information from you was instrumental. So these parents got to understand they have to talk to others. They got to get people from out their circle. And they got to explore other options and talk to other people that do this for a living, and not what their older brother went to D1 or their cousin went. They still got to hear from other people that's not personally invested, not personally invested in their child, and they got to talk to people like you and your community to get that feedback and that professional feedback on how to navigate and how to move and work these inner workings with their son or daughter. It's very important. It is very instrumental. So people have to understand, all US out here listening, do have to understand you have to take advantage of some of these services that are out there. And you got to do your research. Some are a money grab and some are going to keep it real with you and explain everything you need to know and help you along the way. Tony, I pulled you aside many times because you just told RJ you was that high recruit in football and basketball. And I kept asking you, like, yo, what are we going to do? How are we going to approach this?
Right.
Because you were able to relate because you already been down that path. Me, on the other hand, I haven't. I was a basketball 100% all the way through.
Right.
So I needed that guidance from someone that could relate and also has the background knowledge to deal with the inner workings of being recruited. Right. So I suggest to parents they do try to find those kind of avenues and those scouting services that they really have to do their research on, but they can be very helpful.
Yes. So bottom line is, parents, I hope you was listening, because what Robbie just said was some very pivotal information that will help you sort out and seek and find those people to surround yourself with and your student athlete, your son or your daughter, in order to get them where they need to be. And you got to surround yourself with the right people that's going to be in your corner and really give you some really good information for you to be able to make decisions from. But as Robbie also alluded to, he mentioned how important it is for you to self-educate yourself as much as possible. That way you would know what questions to ask, how to surround yourself, and also, really be able to see through who is really genuine and really know what they're talking about, and those who are just out there trying to be, someone that they're not. So when you educate yourself, you'll be able to vet through those kinds of things in a really, really beneficial way for you and your son and your daughter. So thank you, man, for that for that comment and and that information, because that was some good stuff right there. So RJ, my man, RJ, let's get cooking, man. Let's talk about your perspective a little bit. So can you share, with us, those early memories, man, that you have, just playing as a young boy, young kid, playing football, playing basketball, and how did your passion, in the sport of basketball and football all come together and start developing? When did you start falling in love with the game and just wanting to play all the time and really was like geared toward just being an athlete? When did
Well,
that all kick in for you?
well, my dad said basketball was my first love, my first sport at 4 years old. And being outside, I have a court outside in my backyard, and being out there just every day playing around, shooting the ball, just learning the early fundamentals of how to play basketball. I think
Mhm,
that helped me develop over the years, and I just started gaining a passion for it, being out there every day because I had nothing else to do, and
mhm,
it grew over the years into middle school, high school, and all that. And then football, I started at 7, playing multiple positions,
mhm,
QB, defense,
mhm,
defensive end,
mhm,
played running back a little bit.
mhm,
And I think I was always bigger than everybody on the field. And growing
mhm,
up, I think just being dominant and being bigger than everybody and
mhm,
winning a lot just made me start liking it more because I'm a competitive person. So I like to win. So
mhm.
having an advantage over people with my body and all that, it just helped me gain a passion for football. And that's why I just stuck with it and I never gave up on it.
Got you. So just being out there, just being involved with it, you just learn to just love that thing, man. And
Hmm.
at this particular point, um, now you've made a commitment, to play football, but during the time that you were just playing both, coming up and coming through the ranks, was there one that you kind of, you know, favored more than the other? And then what were some of those other things, man, that you just loved about both of them? And I know you kind of alluded to a little bit, but just a little bit more detail with the difference between the two. Is kind of hard, man. Nip and tuck. You probably wondered, man, can I go to Rutgers and play both? Can I still do both? And being as though you've been doing that for so long, what about the difference between the two?
Think the difference between the two, well, I don't see a difference, but I see a similarity about the work, like working out every day and just trying to get better. I think that's the best part about the process because even on days when you don't want to work out or you want to take a day off, the ultimate goal is to get better. So even if you're going in the gym, going on the field to do like 10-minute, 15-minute drills, you're still getting better than you were yesterday. So I think that's the best part of the process. And I
Mhm,
have a lot of outlets as I have a basketball court in my backyard, have weights downstairs in my basement. So it was
mhm,
always easy. I never had to like drive anywhere far. So it was always
mhm,
easy for me to get better. And I think the differences between basketball and football, I always grew growing up, I always liked basketball more because
mhm,
I think basketball was more competitive growing up. And I said
mhm,
I was a competitive person. So
mhm,
I always thought I was better at basketball too. And I thought on a football field I was just big until I started getting a little older. I started getting a little better and I started seeing the differences and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. And then that's when it all
mhm.
started clicking by like middle school, late middle school, early high school. I was like, what am I gonna do? And now we're here.
Gotcha. I got you. So it was just a matter of just, time that you got a chance to really, learn about yourself. So that's one thing about sports. And this is something that I always share with student athletes and parents is that it teaches you so much about yourself. It teaches you how to be a team player. It teaches you about work ethic, um, you know, um, adversity, all those kinds of skill sets you will find yourself involved in sports, and it will teach you a lot about yourself. And as you just alluded to, that's exactly what happened. Um, those things were accessible to you at home. Your parents made that, easy for you. and you just went out there and just, started just involving yourself, man, and you started learning more and more about yourself. You thought you were just big, early on, but then you realized, man, hey, wait a minute. Yeah, I am big, but I'm getting better at this thing too at the same time. So, man, I'm dominating. That's when that confidence started coming in that said, man, I'm dominating these guys. So, and then I've watched you over the years and your mentality. You have a football mentality. I mentioned that to your dad. You have a football mentality. You have that. And I know that. I know that when I see that. So that's going to help you as you move forward in your college career. And trust me, we will be watching. We'll be like right there, watching RJ, do his thing. So tell me, RJ, going through this whole thing, man, I'm looking at the list of schools, bro, that was recruiting you. And, I'm just looking at, football for right now. And I know there were a lot of schools for basketball. Trust me, I understand this whole process of, man, it's one thing to be a prospect and you're not getting recruited or you're not getting multiple offers, but it's another thing in the recruiting process when you're getting multiple offers from a lot of different schools for both sports. It's like, man, how do I figure all of this out, man? How do I scratch off schools from the list? How do I really figure this thing out? Do I want to go far away? Do I want to stay local? Is this system the best for me? What about the coaching staff? All these kinds of things just going all through your head. And one thing that, I can say to your advantage is that you had a great person with you in your father, former student athlete and educator who understands, how to rationale and make decisions. Your mom, other people in your circle, that surrounded you to help, kind of like navigate you. But at the same time, you having the ability to think critically and make some decisions on your own, so that is a great thing. I'm looking at the list. Of course, at the top of the list is Rutgers, right? UConn, Duke, UMass, Old Dominion, Pitt, Temple, Syracuse, West Virginia, Minnesota, Penn State, Michigan. I heard about, Penn State flying in on Friday night. I was like, oh, I wonder if, there could be a little swaying going on here, on Friday night. Coach Franklin came in. But man, just looking at that list, what were some of the emotions? I guess what I'm trying to get to, RJ, is the emotion part of it. That thing on the inside, man, that you was like, I know at some point you had to be saying, man, like, this is not easy. You know what I'm saying? Just being transparent. And the reason why I'm asking you this is because this podcast is going to be viewed by a lot of other student athletes, a lot of parents, a lot of other people that you can help right now by just sharing your story and just being real with it, man, because a lot of people don't know what to do. You've already gone through it. So what can you share about those emotional moments and what could actually benefit other student athletes and parents out there who's going through this whole process?
There was definitely a lot of emotions when this whole thing was going on. When I started getting football offers, obviously I was still thinking about basketball and how I can succeed in that. But once I started getting more football offers, talking to more coaches, I had to start thinking about like what's going to set me up for the best future. Like obviously I want to play basketball, but my high school career is coming to an end, and I don't really have that many offers, and I'm like up in the rankings on football. So now I gotta make a business decision on like what is my life going to look like in 4 years between basketball and football outweighed basketball a lot. Even though I love basketball, I just had to take my route on my future. And that's the biggest thing that stood out to me was what's going to set me up.
Gotcha. Okay, so you looking ahead. So student athletes and parents. RJ just said, he had to really take a look 4 or 5 years down the road, looking at what is on the table for him right now. Even though he likes something, he like b-ball a little more, but he's still really, really good in football, and he has a lot more offers. And will that propel and take him to where he is trying to get ultimately, you know, as a career move because and a business decision because this is business as well as career opportunity and a career move for you because at some point that pigskin, that ball, they stop bouncing and they stop flying through the air, and then what's next after that? You follow me? So we will get into a little bit more, and I don't want to get too far ahead of you because you still got to focus in on getting through this senior season before going to the Big Ten. But one of the questions I will ask you, and you can think about it, is that what are your thoughts, in terms of after college? Have something that you can't help, but to think about, and what are some of those goals that you're looking to try to do once you step foot on the Scarlet Knights campus? You know, are you looking to be a impact player right away and really get into the fold, in the Big Ten and really try to, establish a name for yourself and maybe hopefully become one of the better players in college football to maybe have aspirations to even go on further. Have you thought about that? Um, the potential is there. Have you thought about? Have you even thought about that at all?
Um, well, that was one of the main things about early enrollment. I want to go into Rutgers and I want to be an impact player right away. I don't want to waste no time. I don't want to be a redshirt. I want to play as a freshman. So that's the whole thing about the early enrollment thing in January. And the goal is to get there, do my time, hopefully make it to the league. But if I don't make it to the league, um, I think I want to be a businessman, have some businesses, be an entrepreneur. I know that my dad has a business, so I think that's what I
Mhm.
want to do if plans don't go well.
Awesome, awesome. So that's good. So you hear that, student athletes, you hear that, parents. He's thinking ahead. He's thinking about his future. Okay, so what are my options? Of course, in my mind, I want to try to, take it in this one direction, but at the same time, what are the other options available to me afterwards? If things don't go according to what my plan or what I think they are, but what God's plan is for me, right? So, um, businessman, what a great example that you have here, in your father, businessman at heart. He's out there, he's doing it. He can show you the ropes, educator, great role model and an influencer out there. And that's what it's all about, man, is becoming that productive citizen, man, in your community, man, moving forward and paying it back and paying it forward to the others, man. And that's what's up. So uh how about some of the influences, mentors or any particular people in mind that actually, really kind of, got you to really come to your conclusion and make your decisions? Was there any like role models that you had that you really looked up to that really kind of help you navigate and come up with these conclusions in how to choose and pick Rutgers and just commit in your student athlete journey? Who were some of those influential people in your life that really helped be the driving force for you?
I would say my parents and my coaches, for sure. My parents every day since the whole thing started giving me advice daily, giving me deep advice. And then I got coaches at school, head basketball coach, head football coach, telling me
Mhm.
like things like the basketball coach is telling me like, do what I want to do. He support me no matter what, even if I didn't end up choosing basketball. Obviously, he wanted me to because I went there for basketball, but he told me like just keep my head straight, and he would support me, and I respected that a lot. And then my football coach, he played Division I football, so I was listening to him. He had a lot of good advice too. So I think hearing different advice from other people, it was starting to add up that they were all saying the same thing. So I started to listen, and now I'm committed to Rutgers. So
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. And one thing that you said that was really key, RJ, is that you sought after those people that were surrounding you, that you was involved with, who had that kind of background and experience, but you decided to have conversations with them and ask them questions. That's important. A lot of times, a lot of young people, they don't ask questions of those people that are right around them, coaches and teachers or things like that, that have experience, that have backgrounds in the direction in which you want to go, and it can really help, be really beneficial. It could even, open up some other doors that you may not even imagine, that they actually have a connect somewhere. So it's always good to talk to those people that surrounded you, man. And you did the smart thing by doing that. So kudos to you, man. I wish you well, man, and everything. I think that you're going to be very successful moving forward. I just want to see you, finish out your senior year dominating, as effectively as you possibly can. Don't worry about anything else. You already know where you're going. So right now is to be the best that RJ can be at Sally's and dominate every week. Dominate and crush the books, crush the
I just want to jump in and I'm sorry. I just wanted to jump in too.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just to answer that question on the parent side. And I think a lot of your listeners or followers need to understand how important it is when you're a parent and you're in front of all these coaches that you have to ask a lot of questions. And if it even takes you at something like we were putting them on our phones, we have questions on our phones ready to ask all these coaches, because it can get very overwhelming when every weekend you're at a school, you're on a campus, you get invited to all these campuses every weekend during their periods, and it's so much thrown at you. Unlike our days when we were recruited, now you got this NIL, you got all this money that these student athletes are getting offered. It changes the landscape a lot. And some families, want to make decisions because they need that money right away to help the family. And that's some stuff to consider as well. But it was real pivotal when we was at Duke University and meeting with the defensive coaches from Duke. Now, they originally were at Penn State when they first started recruiting RJ, and then the defense coordinator got the head job at Duke, and he took a lot of his staff with him. So they was obviously very familiar with RJ because they wanted him at Penn State.
Right.
But when we went and visited Duke, that coach, and I can't remember his name, but he was one of the defensive line coaches. He made a point to let us know. He's like, RJ had probably about 11 offers at the time. And he's like, listen, they're interested, but you need to go back and see how much interested they are. And what he told us to do, and the strategy we had to use, was he said, listen, go back to all the coaches that offer you or show interest and ask them, are they prepared to schedule their official visit? That was key. We had to drive 2 hours from RJ was actually at a basketball WeAreOne tournament, and we was 2 hours away from Duke University. So we took the drive at like 5 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
Back before his games that afternoon. And he gave us the best advice. He's like, listen, two things. One, they'll love to have you. And he said the grades. Like, if you don't got 3.0 or higher, we're not even going to look at you.
Right.
So you got the academic piece at some of those schools, right? It was like that at Notre Dame as well. When we visit Notre Dame, they talk academic first. They don't care about you here as a recruit. They're going to talk academics to you first. Those high academic schools. But he also, what he was saying was, listen, you go back and press these other coaches on scheduling the official visit. If they don't respond to you via your text or email or phone call to them about scheduling it, then they're not serious.
Right.
They're not serious. And literally, when we was driving back, we had Coach Deladon reach out to all of them, all 11 of them,
Mhm.
Said, when can you schedule the official visit? Because we beyond just talking.
Right.
And you had several respond, and several of them kind of like, not yet. And
Mhm.
that new coach said, if they're giving you that runaround, then you're not
Mhm.
high on their board, right?
Right.
So you
Right.
want to go with the ones that's high on the board that respond and say, yes, you come official visit.
Mhm.
Yeah, let's talk to the head coach. We're going to get a schedule, and they get back to you in a couple of days, all right?
Mhm.
The other piece, very important information that he brought to our attention was he was like, listen, if you come here at Duke, RJ, you're gonna play a lot, right?
Mhm.
You're gonna play a lot. If you go somewhere like where we were recruiting you at Penn State, it's a big difference, right? He's like,
Right.
what the NFL scouts look at,
Mhm.
he said what the professional scouts look at, they look at how many miles you got on you.
Right.
Right. So he said, you come here, you could play, you could be all ACC, but you got a lot of miles because you're gonna play a lot of downs, you're gonna play a lot of
Right.
plays. Where if you go to somewhere like Penn State, he was like, you're gonna be like in an 8-man rotation, but the college scouts going like, you don't got that much wear and tear on your body because you know what I mean, because you're constantly rotating
Right.
in and out.
Right.
So you got a lot more miles left. And he's saying that's the key that a lot of people don't miss, a lot of people don't understand. So when you're looking at these schools, you got to look at who's going to run you down, who's going to run you through the dirt.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? And then you get to the next level when you only got 3 years in you because your body's so worn down. You
Right.
go somewhere where you're going to be fresh and you're
Mhm.
going to be able to buy 7-10 years and have a career as opposed to just a couple years. And that was some really good advice when we was driving back.
Yeah.
And get right on the phone and start reaching out to all these schools.
Yeah.
And then, you know, out of 11, like 6 of them was like right away, like, yes, let's do it. Let's set it up, you know? So when we started lining them up, you know, RJ took Rutgers was the first one. And he just loved it. So we had to dismiss the others after that.
Yeah. Hey man, let me tell you something. What you just said, that was paramount. Parents and student athletes, I hope that you were listening because what Robbie just shared, that was powerful. He's talking about actual experience on trips at schools, talking to the coaches at these universities where your son or your daughter are aspiring to be recruited from, and how to navigate this thing. You got to ask those questions, the right questions. You know, just because you get a letter, you get a couple calls, a couple text messages, and things like that, that doesn't mean that they're really trying to offer you, or you are high on their board, as Robbie indicated, to be one of their top recruits. So press and push. Ask those questions. Know what to ask them right away, because you don't have time to be wasting. You want to make sure you find that school that really truly want you. Then you're top on their board in terms of being a prospect to bring into their program and help them move forward as an ambassador, you know, student athlete. And the other thing that he mentioned was the academic side. You know, a lot of schools going to recruit you, and you know they're really high on academics. You got to be taking care of the classroom as a student. The other thing that I think a lot of student athletes don't understand and realize too is if you keep your GPA at a 3.0 to 3.5, you can get academic scholarship money as well. So that's a whole nother conversation when it comes to the compensation part, NILs, and all those kinds of things. But all of
Student
these
athlete is
things,
going to be a lot more marketable if they have over
Mhm.
3.0. A lot
Yes,
more marketable. You have a
yes,
lot more
yes,
schools that want you because they see
mhm,
you can balance the academics and the sports.
absolutely.
That's huge when a
Yeah,
recruiter is looking at that GPA. And if you had a
absolutely.
school that's a high academic school and you got a high GPA, the
Mhm.
sky's going to be the limit on the amount of schools that's going to want you because they see you already balancing it at high school.
Right, right, exactly. That's what's up. That's what's up. So, RJ, are you ready to balance that thing out, man? Academics and athletics.
Yes,
What
sir.
now, let me just say this since we're on this topic, because I don't know if they have bells ringing in Sally's or not, but I know when you go to that college campus, ain't no bells ringing. You're going to be living in your own, I don't know, the dorm or townhomes or whatever the case may be, right? So now you got to make those decisions for yourself in terms of waking up, going to class, studying. Should I be, am I going to go hang out, do social stuff? Am I going to work out? Am I going to do all these other different things? So it's like managing your own time. So, what are your thoughts about that part, that piece of it, in terms of being able to manage your time and making sure that you're balancing the academics as well as the athletics as well at that level?
You just gotta be disciplined. As you grow up, you gotta get your priorities straight and be responsible for what you gotta do. You gotta keep the main thing. So if I gotta go to class and then practice, I'm gonna get my work done first and then go to
Mhm,
practice because at the end of the day, a student before athlete. So
mhm.
you just gotta take your time. Even if you need help, you can just ask for help from anybody. Because on the college level, you got a lot of outlets you can go to help for. So I'm not gonna say it's gonna be easy, but
Mhm.
it's not gonna be hard either. It's gonna be a challenge though for sure. You just gotta be disciplined and stay focused, and that's
Gotcha.
something I'm able to do.
Gotcha. Well, thanks, man. I really like that response. Um, and I just want to say, man, thanks again, RJ, for coming on, man, spending time with me and just sharing your journey, man. I really appreciate that. I appreciate your dad coming on as well and setting this thing up with me. I wish you nothing but the best, man. You are blessed and you are highly favored, man. You are a tremendous student athlete, and we here in Delaware, man, we're rooting you on, and we'll be watching, with our glasses on and cheering you on, man. So keep doing what you're doing. Keep up the great work, man. Your future is bright. And again, man, I appreciate you coming on tonight, man. I want you to go ahead and enjoy the rest of your evening and get ready for tomorrow. And you know, Dad, I appreciate you, man, for coming on and sharing your time. And this is what it's all about, man. Like I want you to be, you know, uh, just prepared, and I think coming on doing these kinds of shares, really help put you in that position. But at the same time, and what we try to do at TGBA, man, is we try to educate the masses, families, student athletes, and parents, man, on how to go through this thing because it is not an easy task, man. What you went through was a turbulent time, and it takes the whole family, man, to get through this thing. And so when you go back and reflect on this, man, it's like, wow, this was serious, man, because this is all shaping you up for the rest of your life. So, with that being said, man, I just want to thank you guys again. And you know, we will be watching you, man, and cheering you on. You guys enjoy yourselves, man, and thanks again. All right.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Have a good
Hey,
one.
you too. You too. Pleasure.